Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Turning a Moment into a Movement. I am J Love, and I represent the Justice for Gerard movement. Gerard is my son who was wrongfully convicted of a crime that he didn't do. He recently passed away almost a year ago, and a year after he was released, actually. And so, because of the journey with Gerard and those experiences and all the people that I met on that journey, we created this platform called Turning a Moment into a Movement. And we come here every Friday to talk, to discuss wrongful convictions, injustice, and things that are important to our community. So we can eliminate wrongful convictions. I'm sorry, it's a little warm today. Anyway, so thank you. This is why we're here, and we ask you to subscribe to our YouTube page, um, and you would be notified every time we go live. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for those who watch on YouTube, on Twitter, and those who may watch us later on after this has been recorded. Thank you for joining us. And just please share the info because we want to get this information out to as many as people as necessary so we can change our reality. So, our mission here at Turning Moment into a Movement is to bring awareness to the wrongful conviction of Gerard and all others who are wrongly convicted, over sentenced, mentally ill, medically frail in our community, to inspire, organize, and educate all communities about the need to disrupt systems, policies, and patterns of the criminal legal system that leads to wrongful convictions. So that's our goal every week, every Friday that we're here. So this platform I shared with some awesome people, and I want to bring them on so they can introduce themselves, and then we're here to talk about a real important subject. So, but before we get on to that, I'm going to bring in our first panel member. Hi, Reverend Tia.
Hello and good evening, everyone, and all of our listeners. Jay,
Yes.
I just commend you for the walk and I thank you for inviting me along the journey and allowing me to be a part of such a movement. I praise God for Gerard and his legacy and what he demonstrated and the truth he was demonstrating while he was here. And
Yeah.
I know we're going to be talking about our love gathering, so I'm excited for us all to come together without any pretense and with just to come and be, know how to love ourselves, love on each other. And that's what it's going to take.
Mm-hmm.
I am a part and founder of the Choice Zone, and I help people get to their purpose and thrive in their calling and feel it. It's important to feel it because there's so many other things out here to feel. But once you know what you have come not only to do, but to be, your beingness, then all the other distractions just fade away. And so I'm so glad to be a part of turning the moment into a movement, whatever I'm doing, whether it's G100 Oneness and Wisdom, Transforming Love Community Ministering, or with um, Michigan Coalition of Human Rights. I invite everyone to be a part. Whatever I'm doing, it is a community effort. I have the community at heart, and I believe that it is time for us to take our families back, take our life back, and be everything that we were destined to be. Thank you so much, Jay. And this topic is so important. I can't wait.
Yes. www.thechoicezone.com is where you can
Thank you.
reach
Thank you.
Tia. And yes, Reverend T, I'm glad that you're here today. So let's
Yes,
bring on,
yes.
first of all, before we bring on Attorney Matt, just let's send love and prayers of healing to Trische. She had a fall or something today, and she popped herself on here. I'm like, get out of here! Why aren't you here? She need to rest. Rest is important. And,
It is.
sometimes things happen because we need to sit down. So,
Yeah.
Shay, get you some rest. We love you, and we'll see you later.
And we need you, Trische. We need you. So you got to get your rest.
Exactly. Exactly. So, greetings, Attorney Matt.
Much love, much love, much love to my sisters. How y'all doing tonight?
We're great. How about yourself?
Well, good, good. Conquering technology once again. Got myself a Chromebook now. Got rid of the old Albatross laptop. It's still sitting up there looking at me crying, you know. So I'm on a clean, crisp broadcast. Y'all,
I
the rest of the
see.
people ain't laughing at me no more. He can't even get his audio together. I know y'all was laughing. I know, but it's all good, my sisters. It's all good. So, this truly is a day the Lord has made. I rejoice and I'm glad in it. And I'm
Yes.
certainly honored to be two beautiful black women. Oh my goodness, two beautiful black women, queens, in a righteous struggle, And so I really mean that. And J Love, I have nothing but love, admiration, and respect for you. You have done and keep on doing and keep on doing. And Reverend Tia, thank you for being who and what you are. And, and the thing that I love about y'all and people in our group is that we're not stopping.
Right.
We are not stopping. And for so long, our people, we start out strong, protesting and writing letters and boycotting. And then before you know it, right all back to normal, but change doesn't happen that way. Change is what we're doing right now. And it's got an effect. It has got an effect. I do so look forward, J Love, to an opportunity sometime to talk about qualified immunity and what it is and is not in terms of the state of Michigan, because it's fascinating but somewhat disappointing, when you look at what's actually on the table. But we have to crawl, before we can walk, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And we got to walk before we can run. And Dr. King said, if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving. And so that's what we're doing. So, Attorney Hugo J. Mack, Dr. Hugo J. Mack, I might add, here with you today, and an attorney who is not with you, who parachuted from heaven, J. Love, but attorney who's with you, who's come up from hell through the grace of God in Jesus Christ, my personal Lord, Master, and Savior, who I unashamedly profess. And I say that because my scripture teaches me there's nothing new under the sun. Goliath existed yesterday and they exist today. Wrongful imprisonment, incarceration existed yesterday and it exists today. As a person who's been a victim of a wrongful imprisonment, incarceration, I understand the issue quite well, personally and professionally. So God has restored me to the practice of law. 80% of my practice is representing poor, disadvantaged people, 75% of them women, 65% of them women of color who have been allowed to fall through the cracks. They don't make the headlines anymore, J Love. They don't have a bunch of social services people willing to help them, and very few lawyers willing to work pro bono for them. And I don't say that boastfully. I say that as a badge of honor to be able to stand up for people who cannot stand up for themselves and to help them. So, God blesses me. So I'm not worried about anything. So I'm here, proud to be a member of the group and glad to be here fighting for justice. And that's what I have to say. And, well, here we go. If you find yourself on Trouble Boulevard, push, pull, tow, drag that hoopity to Mack Street. Mack Street. Park in my virtual underground garage. And when you're there, call the Freedom Line, 734-239-3118. The Freedom Line. 734-239-3118. The Freedom Line, 734-239-3118. And if you don't want to win, don't come in. Stay out there in the cold with the rest of them other people waiting for government cheese. HMAClaw.com is your hookup. HMAClaw.com is your hookup. HMAClaw.com is your hookup. And J Love, in order to give people time to write down that important information, I'd like to provide you, if you'd excuse me, while I and Roland Martin do the Boogaloo.
Okay.
Reverend Tia, almost done, y'all, right quick. And do the Batman from Pulp Fiction. Thank you very much. Now, J Love,
Yes.
if people ask you, J Love, did that crazy attorney endorse that announcement? My answer, damn straight I did. That's right. Damn straight I did. So, J Love, I want to let you know this one thing. This endorsement, this announcement, this presentation, Mr. and Mrs. America, all the ships at sea, silence, silence. This announcement is brought to you by the one and only Dr. Hugo J. Mack, Esquire, the one true king of Russia, Scotland, and Harlem. I love you.
You know what, Attorney Matt, I'll be waiting for this every Friday. Oh my goodness. This is the laugh we need before we dig in.
Amen. Amen.
Helps us stay balanced.
Amen.
Yes. Laughter is healing.
That's right.
Amen. Amen.
Woo. So thank you, Attorney Mack.
My pleasure. I love you.
I love you too. So I was Attorney Mack and Reverend Tia. I was listening to this podcast this week. And on the podcast, there was a lady who was she was a resident of Canada. And she was talking about how her sons were incarcerated, and both sons at the same time. And she was discussing how one of them had ADHD. And so when I was listening to her story about it and the things that her son was going through and different things that was happening to their family, I wanted to look it up to see how that was linking to ADHD is linked to incarceration. So I started sending stuff to Reverend Tia. And Reverend Tia is our resident behavior therapist.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Reverend Tia, maybe we should discuss this because I think this is important because everything I was looking up and finding was in the UK. Not much of this conversation was going on online here, except for TikTok. There is plenty of stuff on TikTok about it, but different doctors or people who are going through this. But professionally wise, you see tons of video of the UK where they're actually doing the work and the research. So Reverend Tia, take it away.
Yeah, I tell you, I was really excited because this is a conversation that we're learning to have in the United States. Unfortunately, we have to remember that when it comes to incarcerations, prison, this is a money maker for a lot of people. A lot of corporations and organizations, lawmakers benefit economically from incarcerated individuals. And so it's about just a numbers game. It's a numbers game for that. Can we get how many people can we get in the prison population? How many more people? And when you talk about autistic individuals or people with ADHD, we are talking about childhood developmental illnesses or disabilities that children experience. Unfortunately, everybody does not get help for for that particular diagnosis. You would think by today that we would have the capability to identify and assist parents and families of getting help for the child. What happens a lot of time, and this is what we have to know, is that children who may be tested as far as being autistic or having ADHD does not mean that they are intellectually inept.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different measurement. You're not testing for IQ. So just because a person is autistic does not mean that their IQ is low.
Exactly.
When it comes to autism, we want to really think about communication. That's the way I say with autism. How does your child communicate? So when it comes to autism, sometimes it's not as noticeable now. Of course, early studies can can see that a child may be autistic when they're about 18 months or 24 months. But remember, this is a spectrum, which means it is a long spectrum of possibilities of a person of having autism.
Mm-hmm.
And you're on it. Everybody's on the spectrum. No
Right.
one is not on the spectrum for autism, okay? So it's that wide. When you talk about Asperger's syndrome, that's a part of autism. So we have to know that it's such a long range. How can we help? When do we help? How can we get assistance for the child? And
Mm-hmm.
so, um, why don't we take a look at one of the clips so they can see, at least one of them, see
Okay.
overall what's happening. Because even before we play it, Jay, when it comes to autism, and there's just three things I want to bring up before we start, and that's this.
Okay.
Autistic individuals are often misunderstood and interpreted by law enforcement officers, judges, and other members of the criminal justice system because they exhibit behaviors that are considered unusual or disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the police see it, they misinterpret the behavior as noncompliance or aggressive behavior. And then that's what leads to an autistic person or a person with ADHD being arrested or suffering from imprisonment, um, even though they may have not committed a serious crime. They have judged the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
The second is many autistic individuals struggle with social and communication difficulties, like I already said, which can make it challenging for them to navigate the criminal justice system. They struggle to understand the legal jargon or express themselves effectively. That impacts their ability to defend themselves in court or to advocate for their own needs. And so when you talk about people who have autism or who have ADHD, they cannot advocate for themselves. And that's why they become a part of a fragile, vulnerable community, people in the community who are
Mm-hmm.
at risk. The third thing is that autistic individuals may be at higher risk, of course, for targeted by law enforcement because of intersecting factors such as race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and mental health conditions. So, what I'm saying is, on top of a person having autism, on top of a person experiencing ADHD, then if you add on if the person is of color or black, if they are from a different culture, have a different culture, if their status, if they are economically at a disadvantage, if they have any other mental health condition that goes along with that diagnosis, then that individual is at a higher risk of being targeted by law enforcement due to these other conditions. These are conditions that they're born with.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, the prison environment can be particularly challenging for autistic individuals who may struggle with sensory overload, social isolation, and lack of routine. So a lot of times the people who have autism, they have a routine way of doing things. And you put them in prison, that routine is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Isolation, the noise, any sensory overload, whether it's if it's banging on the wall, um shouting in the background from officers, and all of this can exasperate their underlying conditions, and it makes them unable to function and thrive even in prison. So this is definitely a situation that we need to talk about in our community, and then
Hmm.
see what kind of solutions do we have.
Okay, Rabbit Tia, I do have like this is what autism look for like in adults.
Hmm.
And the symptoms adult ADHD.
Right.
Because a lot of people think it's
Impulsive.
just kids, but
Right.
adults are walking around with it because were never diagnosed as a child,
Hmm.
or no one
Hmm.
never addressed it. But these are some of the
Yeah, let's
things that
look
you just
at it.
mentioned: trouble multitasking, problems
Hmm.
focusing on a task, poor time management, excessive activity or recklessness, poor planning, low frustration tolerance, frequent mood swings, problems following through and completing tasks, hot temper, trouble coping with stress can all be
Hmm.
symptoms of adult ADHD.
Right. And especially if you haven't had any behavioral intervention, then as you get older, those symptoms become more exasperated. So just
Yeah.
imagine if you have a child who may have been determined to be autistic. If they haven't had any intervention, and I've experienced a couple, just recently, and these people were in their 20s, and so they did not have the intervention. So what happens is that even though they get older, with autistic children, many times parents respond to the cry or the yelling or the tantrum. Now, the reason why behavior intervention is important is because behavior intervention means that this is a practice pattern or behavior that the child has been doing because that's how they get what they want,
Mhm.
because they haven't been able to communicate.
Mhm.
People need to understand that many times children who have autism cannot speak initially. They can't verbally say anything.
Mhm.
Their way of getting parents and adults to respond to their need has been through a yell or a tantrum or pointing and falling out. Unfortunately, if the parent has not been trained on how to respond to that, then they give them what they want in order for them to be quiet. So this becomes a practice. Now imagine if that same child grows up with the practice of, if I yell and cry and scream and kick and bite, I get what I want. Then now they're 18 or 19, and then they do it.
Mhm.
Okay. And then, well, then that's when police get involved.
Mhm.
And that's why it's important to get the help early on, as early as possible, in order
Mhm.
to get a new practice, or what we say is to develop a new wave in your brain, develop a new groove, that
Mhm.
groove in that brain, develop a new one so that the pattern is not to scream.
Mhm.
So, a lot of times early on, like with the little ones, we practice taking a deep breath. What is it that you're trying to say? Use your words.
Right.
Use your words. It's important that children use their words.
Right.
And parents don't respond when my children were little, and they were not diagnosed with autism, but when just little ones, like I said, everybody could be on a spectrum at any point. But if my child was in the kitchen and wanted a cookie, and they go, well, then I just look at them. I'm not sure what you're saying.
Right.
Use your words.
Right.
And early on, it's cookie, you know,
Mhm.
cookie. And then I say, cookie, please, cookie, please. Okay. And then they get it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this is when we're teaching children when they're like this at 2. And so sometimes a child with autism gets it around 4 or 5 or 3, but that's okay. They get it. The key is to get them to use words. What we know is that when they can make a sound, then they do have the capability of forming sound.
Mm-hmm.
Then it comes to, okay, how can I get my child to speak? You got it up. This is so good. I can't wait to see this clip. Well,
Which
there's
one?
5 clips.
Which
Whatever
one?
one you want to start with,
Uh,
all of them good.
okay. I'll start
We'll
with this.
save Umar for last. Let's
Uh,
keep his for last.
okay. I'll
Okay.
start with this one here. This lady talking about autism and her nephew.
So this is my cousin, you guys, and he was on ADHD medicine for most of his childhood. And the weird thing was, I will always hear my family talking about how he had such a great learning exceptionality and how he worked so well with his hands. He could take apart anything electronic. He could put it back together. He could tell you how it worked. But in the educational realm, that was not viewed as a component of being a genius. It was viewed as a component of being a problematic child instead of a child that was bored or had the capacity to think differently, so that his needs could be met. And to this day, I still feel just very displeased with how I feel that that the educational system met my cousin's needs. And he grew up to be a great man. He's a wonderful person, thank God. But imagine if he would not have such a strong family support.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. You need the support. Um, Attorney Mack, I was going to ask you, how many times in court do they ever mention autism, that a person is autistic, or if they have ADHD or any other mental illness when they're going before? How much does that actually count
Mhm.
when they go before the judges?
Boy, I tell you what, I'm so glad we're on this topic, and I'm going to try to time my speech like I'm in front of the jury. When the judge started giving me that slanted look and said, "Okay, now you've been talking for 45 minutes now. I'm finna pull the hook." So I'm going to try to get to this, but my heart is so full on this topic. See, when I was in the public defender's office, like the first 6 years, I was the guardian ad litem, all right, for the county's abused and neglected children. That means kids that came in that were the victims of child abuse and neglect. I represented them. And some of these kids were like newborn. I mean, like newborn kids, okay? That had like shaken baby syndrome, and parents can't cope with a crying child. And I also represented parents that were accused of neglect and abuse, also represented juveniles that had committed crimes, although they don't call them crimes as juveniles, but they are crimes, and then representing adults, okay? And so the reason I say this, and I'm so happy we're talking about this, because I just want to talk about the segments of it to answer Reverend Tia.
Go ahead.
In terms of the kids, let me deal with the juveniles that I represented, committed, like, I don't know, breaking in somebody's house or stealing something out of Kmart or something like that. It took such a long time to get the courts even to recognize that there were developmental problems behind. And I look, I hate to say it. The unfortunate majority of these kids were Black. It's true. It's true. And given what we've been through in this country, that really shouldn't surprise anybody, okay? That we suffer from more ailments and illnesses and sicknesses, diseases, socioeconomic problems than just about anybody else in the country. So, and the problem was, even at my level of ignorance, and it was because I didn't know a lot about ADHD back in the early 80s. I don't know if anybody really knew. You know what I'm saying? It was just that this child is a problem. This child is truant. This child is cutting up in the streets. This child is combative, and we got someplace for you. It's called a juvenile home. That's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did. And they put them kids back there, some little mild educational thing for them. But I saw no treatment. I saw no treatment for these kids. And I feel bad now at this point in my career, now that I know so much more now than I did then, because had I seen it for what it was, hearing Reverend Tia talk, I'm sitting here speechless because I'm remembering so many cases where kids fit exactly what this woman has just said. Exactly what this woman, it's amazing. Like she was there, you know? And so I said, dear God, these kids needed help and we did not help them. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. We did not. We processed them. We processed them. We gave them a caseworker, you know, to shepherd them. We tried to give some parenting classes to the parents. But the bottom line is a lot of them aged out of the system. They became adults. You know, we lost track of them until the adult system picked them up. So in the state of Michigan, they've got what's called guilty but mentally ill. Okay. You know, and that's where they can find you guilty. They'll put you behind in prison, but they're mentally ill. What does that mean? Well, I can tell you from personal experience. What that means is you get in line 2 or 3 times a day and they give you a cup, a little Dixie cup with water and pills. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. It's called the Medline. Yes, they do. And I would see so many people, hundreds and hundreds of them over a 12-year period, get in the Medline and just walk the track. Most prisons have a walking track. Walk the track. Shoes run over, slobbing, and all that kind of stuff. And I realized these are folks that needed help probably from a very young age, you know, and they were like pushed through the system. So Reverend Tia, to answer your question, I raise that issue every time under the rubric now of mental health. And there is now more of a movement, thank God, in the state of Michigan and maybe nationally to recognize mental health as an issue and that giving people treatment instead of putting them in jail. But I'm gonna tell you what, that sounds good, but the reality of it is by the time I get the case, I'm dealing with somebody that's like an habitual offender. They may not have gotten the treatment they needed. An habitual offender is a person that has been through the system before. Okay, sometimes 2, 3, 4 time habitual offender. And when it gets to that level, the courts really turn a very deaf ear to, well, there's adult ADHD or there's a history of this. It was untreated. It's like, look, this person has had 2 chances, Mr. Mack, violated parole, come back again. I don't want to hear about no ADHD. I don't want to hear about mental illness because we're not going to keep going down that road. And you know what? Society has got a point, and I'm not minimizing ADHD at all, but it gets to a point where if a person doesn't get treatment and they keep acting out and being aggressive and dangerous, society's got a right to do something about that. Okay, so you know, Reverend Tia, to answer your question, I bring it up every chance I see it. There's times that I've had people go, for example, to the forensic center to see exactly what is going on with them, you know, so the judge can get a feel of it. But 9 times out of 10, people that I ask to go to the forensic center, they come back, they say, nothing wrong with this person. They are competent to stand trial and they should have to answer for their wrongs. And then we're in the fight of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so important. You know what? You're right. And what people need to know is these diagnoses, whether it's ADHD or autism really was not, although they used the word, the word was coined in like 1911, but it was really on the kind of combined with schizophrenia. And people have to understand that when it comes to psychology, it's like a evolving field. So nothing is still the same as it was back then. The first person who his name was I think Triplet was the last name, who Donald Gray Triplet, who was born in early 1900s, and eventually he had moved to his family had moved to around 1930s to Baltimore to have him get some help, because they had not seen anything like it. And around 1938, he was the first person who was diagnosed with what they call autism. The other thing with autism has been linked to so many things now.
Mm-hmm.
And I advise parents to really do the research, because it's a still rather new diagnosis compared to other diagnoses, as far as paranoia or schizophrenia. Um, when it comes to autism, it it still is rather new, and so people are still testing. There's still evidence based things that are happening to see what is it linked to. What I need people to understand, though, is that the rate of autism has grown. And it's not only grown as just because of the fact that it's a rather new diagnosis, okay, but it has grown, because it's more evident when you go into the educational system. You have more children who, whether they have been diagnosed yet or not, exhibit ADHD, they exhibit autism. And so those rates are going up. Now, ADHD has been around longer than autism. The rate of diagnosis, though, now, take a breath, is alarming. And I got to tell you guys, don't allow people just to diagnose. You have to know your children, really research. And before you do anything, ask yourself, am I giving my child an environment that is conducive for growth? And am I doing it physically, mentally, and socially?
Mm-hmm.
Physically, am I giving the nutrients for the body so that my child can maximize their growth? Now, there are a ton of books. Um, Jay, I'm gonna shoot some books over to you following this so that we can put on the website, and I mean on the social media, because people of color need to know that they have done studies, and there is a difference in the children of melanin children compared to other children in developmental stages. I
Yeah.
didn't say it. That's what's written. I
And
will make
oh,
sure that the books, and I got a couple books in mind that I don't want to mess up the title or the author, so I'm going to make sure that I give that to you so we can post it.
okay.
If people want to research, because if you allow your child to just be
Mm.
labeled, so I got a call. I'm not, I'm not telling you nothing I don't know. I got a call from a teacher, and the teacher said, I think your son might need some medication. I think he has ADHD. I said, I think you're not qualified to say that. And not only did I
Right.
not, I went and wrote a letter. And y'all don't want me to write a letter. Once I write a letter, that's it. A letter and faxed it to the principal to let her know how unqualified she was to ever recommend anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
Went up to the school, and so the teacher said, we're going to have you come in so we can meet. Yeah, let's meet on this. And she said, would you meet with the teacher? Oh, I would love to meet with the teacher. I'm gonna. I met with the teacher all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I went up to the school, and it was my son Joshua, and he had a book. He used to love to read. It was like 274 pages. He was in pre-K. He's like 4. He's not even 5 yet. I brought the book and told him to sit here and read the book while I go talk to your teacher. So
Mm-hmm.
he sat outside the door in his chair, and I went in. And so I looked at, and see, that's why parents, you got to be involved. I looked at what, let me see what you're teaching him. I'm all in it. I want to see everything. So I looked at it. I said, okay, well, it's very clear why you think he has ADHD. She said, well, he doesn't stay in his seat. He keeps trying to help the other children. Well, of course, because according to him, they are way behind. That's what he's thinking, but I didn't want to tell her that like that. I told her a different way. I
Mm-hmm.
said, hold on one second. I said, Joshua, come in here, please, and bring your book. So he comes in. I said, sit down. He sat down. I said, read to your teacher. She was flabbergasted. Her mouth was open. I said, I got one question. Can you teach him, or do I need to send his own materials to school? And she said, oh, no, no, Miss Taylor. I can teach him. I can. I didn't know he could read. Not read at a 5-year-old level. The boy was reading at second grade. By the time he was in fifth grade, he was at a college level. Had I allowed them to say he was ADHD, then that would have been a hot mess. Had I allowed them to say he needs medication, yes, he was active. Yes, he was trying to figure out why these kids are behind. Yes, he was going around the classroom trying to help them so they could pronounce words and letters and the phonetic sounds. But she wanted to say that he had ADHD.
Mm.
We cannot allow our children just to be labeled. Now, I'm not saying that not to get them help. I'm saying be totally involved and do your research
Yes.
and know that there's hope, you know?
Right. Yeah, Robert T, because people label things they don't understand.
Yeah.
So they'll say, oh, he's bad, or he's this, or he's that, because they don't understand. They're not with him 24 hours a day. This lady didn't know. She just know what, he's not listening to her. And so these institutions give these diagnoses and then start criminalizing your kid every time they get put out, every time this and that happens. And so they have a record, right? And they're already labeled. So when Attorney Matt might meet them, they have gone through so much of being labeled, and all these things have happened in their past. That's why they're habitual, because no one ever took the time out to say, hey, let me see what's going on, or get them the help. They just label them and push them on through the system, or
That's
try
right.
to give them medication.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
And J Love, if I could say this too, part of the problem is that, I mean, we all know raising kids is hard work. And I mean, in a quote unquote traditional family, a man and a woman, husband and wife, it's hard work. And for me, and my late brother, raised by a single parent, my late mother, it's doubly hard work. And when you bring in the dynamic of race, it's triply hard work. And then bringing the dynamic of being a male, it's quadruple hard work. Okay. Not that Black women haven't been horrendously done wrong, but I'm saying in a racist, sexist environment, the Black man unquestionably is viewed as a preeminent threat, unquestionably. Okay. And so the situation is, when you couple single parenthood, and a large percentage of our homes are single parent. Yes, they are. There's so many Black men locked up. I mean, what would you expect? I mean, there aren't that many of us to go around. What would you expect when they're taken from the home? So that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on mama to do everything. And so when you bring the variables of sexism and racism into that, it's hard for mom or even Medea. Medea may be better able because she's raised kids before, And you know what? I got to say this: if some of the kids that I represented, if I could turn back the hands of time and let them go with Medea, and Medea tap that butt, I think we wouldn't have a lot of this problem. So, and Reverend Tia, it is so interesting what you said, because I cannot tell you how many times parents have come to me, even though I didn't understand the full dynamic. They said, well, they want them in special treatment, and they want me to give them pills and all that. That's all part of that syndrome you're talking about. But see, you're different. You knew to fight back. But the average person there, well, these are teachers, these are psychologists, and I don't think the boy that bad, but they saying he cutting up, and okay, come on, Johnny or Travis, and there we go. So all I say is thank God for women like Reverend Tia, and thank God for women like J Love, and thank God for all the Medeas out there, because y'all gonna be our saving grace. Yeah.
Indeed, yes, because it still is. I'm glad you mentioned Medea, because it is behavioral. It's behavioral. And when it comes to behavioral, it means it can be changed. Medicine is not the only answer.
Mm-hmm.
Trust and believe.
Reverend
But the
Tia. Oh,
intervention, the
I was going.
intervention has to be a practiced behavior, a new practice, a new thought.
Mm-hmm. Here was a question, Reverend Tia. It came up earlier when you were talking about autism from J.F. Clay. And can you see it, Reverend Tia?
Yep. Um, J.F. Clay, you trying to set me up tonight. Yes. The answer is yes. What I'm going to suggest is that people begin to look at studies of how autism has been linked to medical chemicals. Yes. Has been linked to many things that we have that go into a child. What I'm going to suggest, because I want us to stay on the air, I'm going to suggest that people really investigate. Do not be so free and willing to allow your child's body to have anything in it.
Mm-hmm.
I am an advocate, of course, that I'm an advocate for natural living, for natural life, for organics, for organic living, for putting what's healthy in the body. I am an advocate for that. I do believe that medicine has its place for some emergency situations. I believe we have not maximized the potential of what is in our own earth. And so when it comes to your child, you got to ask yourself, what are you putting in their body? How is it? What's going in the body? What's going in the gates? You know, and I told this to my children all the time. Your gates are your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your mind. What are you consuming? And so, it is so funny how people will easily allow children to eat whatever, not wondering what it is, not looking at what is actually going inside the child. And what's going inside of you?
Mm-hmm.
What are you eating? What are you consuming? And the reason why I say that is because think about it. When it comes to preservatives, what what does a preservative do? All the different preservatives. It preserves. When I think
Mm-hmm.
about preserves, what do I think about? I think about preserving the body or embalming it. But are you putting life in your body?
Mm-hmm.
Life is what's green, what's healthy, what's life, what's living. And we got to ask ourselves these questions especially when it comes to children and with ourselves, and looking at, okay, what is actually happening. And sometimes we pop a pill, we'll pop this, pop that, eat this, eat that, drink this, drink that, with no ramifications or no idea of what is actually happening inside our body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, JF Clay, you got me started.
I
You
want to
got me
show
going.
I want to show this video from the UK, Rabbitier.
Oh yes, yes
I,
indeed.
and this is from the UK, and they're actually
Okay, wait.
talking.
Before
Okay.
you show it, okay, I want to say this. Autism, there was a study, autism and convictions for violent crimes. A population based cohort study was done in Sweden. And I want to say that they are having the conversation. They're going beyond the conversation. They're having the conversation about race. They're having the conversation about race and autism and ADHD and imprisonment of people who are underserved. They are having the conversation at all
Yeah.
levels. And these are people who are not my color having a conversation on how we can improve. And I need people to understand that our system, our health system, is not number one in the world. Oh, I hope I didn't shock you. Look it up. We are towards the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
You get to be number one when you heal.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to ask, are we healing? We're back to this question again. Are we healing? How do we heal? So among individuals with autism, male sex and psychiatric conditions were the strongest predictors of violent criminality, along with parental criminal and psychiatric history and socioeconomic characteristics. So we have to know that when a person is incarcerated, when they have autism, they it's associated with being violent,
Mm-hmm.
having a violent crime, you know. So they say you're violent.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said also in this study that better school performance and intellectual disability appear to be protective. So if the person has a protective educational environment that helps them grow through these behaviors, then that helps. But
Mm-hmm.
they're having a conversation. We
Yeah.
need to. Mhm.
Right.
Okay, go ahead, Jay.
Okay. So this is from the UK. They're having a conversation. This is from a podcast. And I'm gonna play it for you guys. And you can find this on YouTube. I want to put that um disclaimer in there. Because YouTube got me on something. So anywho, here we go. All right. For some reason it's not. I'm gonna bring you back, Rabbitier, while I figure out what's going on right here.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, so when we're talking about autism, it's important to know that, like what happens, for people who are not clear. And if a person, has autism, they can also have something else. They can also have a lower IQ, but that has nothing to do with it. It doesn't go along with it. They can also be impulsive, you know. And so
Mhm.
some autistic people are very quiet and just are to themselves. And a lot of times that goes undiagnosed, and then they don't get the help that they require. But then you have some because of whatever the behavior is, whatever the loudest, those are the ones that get labeled right away. And a lot of times those are the ones that come into contact with the law. And so, if a person, a lot of times with autism, they will become a parrot sometimes to repeat what they've heard. If they heard something on a show, um, and so again, like I say, make sure we're watching what our children are seeing and hearing, because if they repeat, "I'm going to kill you," if they have and they may not have an idea of any way that they want to kill a person, but if they say it, and if they're 20, and let's say their intellectual ability is really at a 10-year-old, but they're 20 chronologically, and then they say, "Well, I wanted to kill him, officer." They may not have actually meant that. But for the officer, they can't tell. They can't tell at all. So the person gets arrested. They get arrested. Now, a lot of these behaviors can be circumvented early on, and so that they know, they begin to learn some structure. If the parent is aware, if the school system is aware, if they have the proper supports. And sad to say, a lot of our schools don't even have those kinds of supports where they can have a support in every classroom. I tell you. Did it not
All
work?
right. You ready, Reverend T? I'm gonna try it again.
Okay.
All right, let's see. If not, I'm gonna go to one of our other videos.
Okay, no worries.
All right.
Which impacts their ability to engage. The last little bit of stats that I want to give you is about people with neurodivergent conditions.
Okay, somebody don't want me to play this video today. I don't know why, what's going on. That's different. So I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to go to one of our other videos we got for tonight.
So ADHD in the prison population. I originally was starting to write it out. However, I realized it was going to be a lot of comments, so I decided a video might be better if I can talk fast enough and squeeze it all in. So ADHD in the prison population. In the regular population outside of prison, ADHD is experienced at a rate about 5 to 9%. That's both diagnosed and undiagnosed. Within the prison population, that rate jumps to 20 to 25% in estimates. In the long-term prison population, that rate increases even more to about 40%. Now, there's lots of reasons why this would happen. Let's talk about a few. The first key one to note is that children with ADHD are estimated to receive 20,000 more pieces of critical and abusive information from authority figures in their life before the age of 12 compared to their neurotypical peers. When you are constantly labeled as a child as a naughty child, you will grow up to be a naughty adult. It's also important to note that people with ADHD, especially those who are undiagnosed, have a higher rate of substance abuse disorder because they don't have access to the medication and coping skills that would make their life livable. People with ADHD also have a higher rate of poverty, and there's many reasons for this, including having substance use disorder, trauma, and as well as finding the neurotypical world hard to navigate. ADHD people are also highly likely to develop antisocial personality disorder. Now, I can't get into that here because that'll make the video too long, but when you're researching it, just beware that there are lots of biases within the neurotypical world of why this happens, and so you have to take some of the information with a grain of salt. It's also very important to note the intersectionality of BIPOC persons who often go undiagnosed, and instead of getting a neurodevelopmental disorder, meaning I was born with this issue, they get a behavioral disorder known as oppositional defiant disorder. That sounds biased enough. It could also be estimated that women in prisons have a higher rate of ADHD, which isn't well studied, but because women have a higher rate of being undiagnosed. People with ADHD are also far more likely to reject authority and social norms, and all of these mixed together just make you at an increased risk for being in prison. It's also really important to note that people with ADHD have an innate sense of justice or an innate sense of morality. Now, when this sense of morality doesn't follow social norms, you're much more likely to engage in risky behavior. When it does follow social norms, you're far more likely to become a police officer. And interesting enough, police officers also have a higher rate of ADHD. And this is where you could come and say that police officers and prisoners have far more in common than they realize. They are two sides of the same coin.
Wow.
Love it.
Attorney Matt.
Yeah. See, wow, that's deep. That's deep. And so, but so true, because the thing of it is, being a criminal defense attorney for all these years, encountering can't begin to tell you how many police. And the problem is when they come into the courtroom, even though I ask juries, will you judge them like you would any other witness without regard to their profession? And everybody says yes. Liars. Everybody says yes, because and see, if I was not afraid that some of my Caucasian-based brothers, and some of the blacks too, they do it too, judges would not throw my black behind in jail for contempt of court, I would like to say liar. So, but I'm not ready to do that, J. Love and Reverend Tia. I need this license at least another 5 years. At least another 5 years.
Right, tell you back.
We need to.
So
Yes.
and so, because that's why I'm so glad to be in this discussion. When I hear you talk and Reverend Tia talk, I've seen those same adult ADHD with police. The way they act on the witness stand and in the streets, as hard as that might be to believe, with police. And so it makes me to understand more all that baggage they bring with them into that job. And I have very little faith in the quote unquote psychological quote unquote screening that they go through, because Reverend Tia said something several months ago, and she said it again tonight. She said every damn body on the spectrum. That's right.
Yes.
And so when I hear you say that, it just makes me laugh. It's not funny, but it makes me laugh. Now, these people are telling me something wrong with me. Who analyzing you?
Right.
You may do the same treatment I do. It's just that you sitting on that side of the desk and I'm sitting on this side.
Right.
But the more we have these conversations, the more we can see ourselves. Right. And we can see others, and we can stop judging and treating people so harshly. Like
that's right.
It's more than what the surface is showing you. And if you're not able to let go of that judgy thing and and look beyond what you just see, beyond the stories on TV, beyond, because it's deeper than that. They want you to live in fear. And so they tell you that these people is like, they're as crazy as hell. But it's so we all like carrying guns everywhere and shooting at each other and stuff. And it's not even that deep.
Right.
But we don't dig. I mean, everybody's shooting at the drop of the dime, these days. And it's really, we need to take a breath and dig deeper, because it's beyond what you see.
Yes. And when it comes to neurodivergent diagnosis, and the top ones are ADHD and autism, the reason why you got to figure is that people with autism have a pattern way of doing things. So let's say they've gotten some help with the autism, or they've gotten some help. And a lot of people who are on the spectrum don't get help, but they've gotten help because maybe they had a structured home. And so they learned structure. They got it down. They know how to get somewhere on time, get their homework done, focus. play a sport. Okay? All of that they can do.
Yeah, just like
Autism
functioning
does,
alcoholics.
yeah, because they have worked through it. So
Right.
a lot of times you don't know the person who has been diagnosed with autism or the person who has been diagnosed with ADHD. And probably a lot of us probably grew up with ADHD, but because they didn't diagnose us as much back then, we didn't get diagnosed. But we did have structure. And this is what happens with behavioral intervention. We apply structure for the individual so they learn pattern of structure. So picture this. They learn the pattern of structure. They learn structure. Yes, they learn time. They learn time management. They focus. They focus. They also learn morals, ethical standards.
Mhm.
And they learn and for a lot of people who have been diagnosed with autism, it's just one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes difficult for them to see beyond the right and wrong. They can't. Their concept of abstract ideas is not always there. They like to see facts. Okay. I'm mentioning this because when you talk about people who like to see facts, it's either this way or that way.
Mm-hmm.
Makes that person more a, a picture of a great picture of maybe a police officer because they like to see facts.
Mm-hmm.
They like it just this way or that way. And so picture the person who doesn't become a police officer, but still has that concept. Then they grow up in a family that has structure but also has racism.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're racist doesn't mean you don't have structure. You just have
Right.
structured racism. So if you grow up like that and then that person gets a gun,
That's right.
okay, and they've been taught that people of color are horrible to the planet. So then they'll feel justified,
Yeah.
no matter what side they're on, whether they
Exactly.
are part of the 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 population, general population, or whether they are part of law enforcement. Regardless what side they're on, they are looking through their lens. And if you are wrong, and justifiably so, they will believe that they have the right to interact and get rid of that behavior.
Right. Right.
And that's why this is important.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we need to have these officers checked.
Mm-hmm.
Judges too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the judges too. Yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
we ready for
'Cause if
this,
you're
Dr.
judging
Umar?
like that,
We ready for this Dr. Umar video?
I think so. Whew, I should go get some drink of water. Y'all go get your water.
We're gonna give you a second.
Yeah, get so I get ice cold water.
Okay.
I also want to say the video that I wasn't able to play for some reason, I did put it in the link, so in the chats, so you guys can go there and check it out. And I would add it to the link for those who are listening. I will add it in the comments link for this podcast. So I'm going to go to the video of Dr. Umar and what's he saying about ADHD.
Thing Envy said, envy your father, your children live with you.
Right.
That's the medicine for ADHD. I refer to ADHD as ain't no daddy at home disorder.
Okay.
ADHD. 85% of Black and Latino boys who are diagnosed with ADHD don't have a male presence in their life. Envy's home. So here's the thing. Mothers traditionally, by socialization, provide the nurture and the love. Fathers traditionally, by socialization, provide the structure and the discipline.
Wait till your father gets home. That's what I
Exactly.
used to
Now,
hear.
when do we get ADD? 1980. ADHD 1987. Is that a coincidence that that's the same decade that America started mass incarcerating Black and Latino male fathers? Of course not. They started locking up the fathers for selling crack, and then they will give their sons crack but call it Ritalin or Metadate or Concerta so they can sit still long enough to be miseducated. Here's the thing. The same drugs that are sending men to jail for 5, 10, 15 years, that's exactly the same drug they're giving their son. The Drug Enforcement Agency classifies Ritalin as a Schedule II drug. It's in the same category as cocaine and opium. It's no different than the illegal drugs. So how do you lock up millions of Black and Latino males for selling dope, and then you give their sons dope so they can get a miseducation?
Now you said something earlier that I had a question about. You're a psychologist. You're a doctor. Now, when I was a kid and there was a kid that was slow, we called him retarded. You said a kid was retarded earlier.
That's a diagnosis.
Right, but people
the retarded is the actual diagnosis.
Yes, President Obama just changed
but
it.
I don't even know what do you call somebody? You say Down syndrome?
No, mental retardation was the label until 2009. President Obama changed it to intellectual disability because parents of mentally retarded children felt the label was too stigmatizing. And there's a whole history to MR. Before they was called retarded, they was called imbeciles. Before they was called imbecile, they was called idiots. These were the official words. So when we call people idiots now, just in gesture, that used to be a psychological diagnosis. So it went from idiot to imbecile to mentally retarded. Now it's intellectual deficiency.
So
I'm a brilliant
proper
idiot.
term is
Intellectual disability now.
intellectual disability.
So you
Okay.
can't say retarded at all.
Dr. Umar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe that there are a lot of women who are the disciplinarians in the family today. When I was younger, the male was usually the picture of discipline. I know in my home.
I can hear you, my son. Always been listening.
And so I'm glad that Dr. Umar brought that up because it at least lets us take a look at our own families, the environment, And then also you saw, even though the autism itself was brought out first in 1911, it was a progressive diagnosis. It was not usually associated with African Americans until the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a diagnosis that general population people received until the 80s. And so it's important that that we understand how things evolved,
Mm-hmm.
and then also follow the money, because the money is the medicine.
Yeah, pharmaceutical
Medicine is
company.
the money. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at this question, Dr. Reverend. Look, Dr. Reverend here. The world, would institutionalization be a form of prison-induced ADHD or autism? Just wondering, because myself and other ex-prisoners, we still are dysfunctional without routines. So, Reverend T, before you answer that, I think that's what Prison Nation is describing, is what Shawana Vine is talking about now, and that's the post-traumatic prison
Right.
syndrome.
Prison disorder.
Yeah, disorder. Yes.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
gonna get Shawana
And
on here, to talk about
yeah, we got to talk about that again, because the studies have shown that people who have done time in prison, regardless of how little or how much, has had a drastic, it has really impacted their life to such a point where it is trauma and it is PTSD. It's a trauma that they say that when people go in, they come out worse than when they started, because they're not getting any help while they're in there. And yet they're being tormented even worse. They're coming across crime behind the bars. They're being violated behind the bars. It's just horrific. And so although it may not be, now it doesn't mean that you may have ADHD, or you could be on the spectrum, but the incarceration itself is its own disease. It is its own disease. And you know, a lot of people do come out, and there's a lot of positives, but getting back to, or having that way of life where you actually feel free, feel liberated, and feel like you can do just about anything, that takes time, and that comes from that post-traumatic disorder. Yes.
That's what Prison Nation is saying. I've been diagnosed with PSTD and MDD. And that's what Shawana is talking about. And that's the bill. She has a bill that she's fighting for related to that.
Yeah.
So this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I'm definitely going to get her on here to discuss that. Because
let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we need to do that, because that silent cry is very supportive. She's always been out there in the community talking about this. And like JF Clay says, having a support system. A lot of times people go in and they don't have a support system when they're behind bars. And then sometimes they come out, they still don't have it, you know. You know, and it makes a difference. I think that's why coming out, they really need to be in therapy and surrounded and linked to all the different kinds of support necessary in order to heal. And I'm telling you, we got to get back to healing. How do we heal from here? Where do we go from here? How do we heal with our families and with our loved ones, with ourselves? It's so important, Jay. And Attorney Mack.
Yeah, and we have to get back to return to love. That's the whole key to all of this, you know. Loving yourself, surround yourself with people who love you, eating healthy, all of that's love. Getting out in the sun, that's love. Walking, exercise, putting your hands in the dirt, that's love. And so we have to get back to all things love in order to heal. And I know it sounds like, you know, but it's just that simple. It's just that simple. Attorney Matt. You muted, Attorney Matt.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, y'all get the laughing over with now before I start. Okay. Look, you know, but you know, in listening, you know, we're all the composite of our life experiences, right? You know, and my life is an open book. When I think about this situation, I think about people that I encountered in my sojourn through the Department of Corrections that had autism, ADHD, struggling with other mental health issues. And I'm telling you, those people were largely victims, okay? But there were a minority of them that were also predators. Predators in the sense that they had to portray a meanness, almost an evilness, in order to try to mask or defend the mental situation they were dealing with. And I got to tell you, those people, and I'm thinking about 4 of them right now, you know, and I'm not mentioning no names, they're probably maxed out. So, but anyway, so those men were extremely dangerous, extremely dangerous, not just for officers, but for inmates too, because it took very little provocation for an immediate and violent outburst. Okay. And, and when I look at that and I can put the pieces of the puzzle together now, the tremendous mental illness challenges they were dealing with, but there was no way to get treatment. Part of it, they didn't want treatment. It was a strict survival mode. And by the way, men and women are not all devils or angels. I mean, we make decisions for ourselves. And there are some people that are just bad actors, period. All right. And so, I ran into a whole bunch of them in a very uncool environment called a penitentiary. So what I'm saying is that if you have individuals that may just naturally have the propensity for badness, for aggression, and put on that ADHD that has not been diagnosed or treated, you got a cocktail for a very dangerous man or woman. Yes, you do. So, we cannot keep overlooking that, because remember, 93% of people in the penitentiary are getting out.
Yeah.
It's not if they'll get out. The only question is when they'll get out. And when that man or woman comes out and it's undiagnosed, and most likely they're not maxed out because the treatment programs ain't worked, the medications ain't worked. And then they're here, J Love and Reverend Tia, and we want to embrace and be loving and receptive. But, I mean, I can't tolerate nobody trying to break into my car. I can't do that, and, so do I become part of the problem? I mean, I don't know.
No, Attorney Mack, you got to become part of the problem. We got to be part of the solution.
Right. That's right. That's right.
So, Reverend Tia, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Jay.
No, go ahead, Reverend Tia.
Yeah, I was, we're all a part of the solution. And I just think that the more we educate ourselves, the more we dive into the conversation, the more we take a stand for what's right. And the other thing is, sad to say, is that especially after coming out of, even though we're still sort of kind of in it, but experiencing the pandemic, and with me working with children, I realized that although they have the ACEs where children are able to, with their parents, identify are their childhood experiences, adverse childhood experiences that have occurred in a child's life that could impact their life. There's so many things that go unnoticed because no one measures it. No one's doing anything about it. They have done the studies where if we can find out early that a child is going through economic challenges, because when the parent goes through economic challenges, the child does too.
Yeah.
Or if a child is just hungry, a lot of times I see children in school, they all don't have the same kind of lunches. And yeah, they may be in the lunch program, but they still may be hungry because they haven't eaten earlier that day. We need to have a more empathetic view and know that everybody's not the same, but yet we're all one, and we do need each other.
Yeah.
And we need each other in this life. And I just believe that because we're here, let's see how we can not just get along, but we can thrive together. But it's going to take people being aware, taking a stand, and knowing what's happening, and protect your children.
Yeah.
Protect them. Don't just let your child get diagnosed.
Yeah.
They've done the studies. My children were active. They were very active. I had twins. They were active. I couldn't go to all the family functions that were going to be all fancy and everything because my children ran around. So if the invite said no children allowed, whoop, there we go. We staying home. Why? Because who's going to take care of twin boys who are 2 and 3 years old and on 10? I enjoyed every moment of it because, Yes, they were active, and they're supposed to be.
Yeah, they're boys.
They're boys. They're supposed to be. They're supposed to be active. They're supposed to be jumping. They're supposed to be running, you know. And if they're not, that's when I'm sad. Like, what's happening? That's when I knew they were sick.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
we got to do our due diligence.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Reverend Tia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Mack. This was an awesome conversation. And, we're going to get Shawana on. I think Allie is going to be on. Actually, Allie has an event coming up. I want to share that with everyone. It's a mental health luncheon and power gathering. So on Saturday, May the 20th from 12 to 2, it's at the Redford Township Library. And so you can go to Allie's page. We'll post this on the Justice for Gerard's page so you can hit that QR code and register for this event. But this is hosted by Michigan Liberation Care Not Criminalization Team. So we're going to have her on to talk about the event, our Allie. And also, let's go through on the third Saturday, on May 20th at 10 a.m. Survivor Speaks have the Wrongful Conviction Support Group that's online through Zoom. If you can hit that QR code or you can click the link, I will also post this. I haven't posted it, but I will post this in the Justice for Gerard page too. It's so those who have experienced a wrongful conviction or families that are impacted, this is a great way to come with other people who had this experience and to support each other, to have these conversations, because sometimes you don't have anyone to talk to because you don't know anyone else is going through what you're going through. So join the support group. And then also on Saturday at 1, please join the Survivor Speech the same Saturday conviction task force, wrongful conviction task force. That's awesome. And we're in that group, we're talking about legislation and how actually we're talking about a qualified immunity, Attorney Mack. And so we also would like for you to support clemency for Susan Brown. I was listening to Susan Brown's story this morning, and I tell you guys, support Susan Brown. Here's the link. And also the QR code. Please support Susan for her clemency. And our Diane Butowski from the Voice of Detroit. Awesome. We had to support this online platform because she gives us a whole lot of stuff that we don't even know what's going on. She's been having these wrongful conviction conversations that's going on in our state for over 20 years. You can support this platform by going to www.voiceofdetroit.net. And also, last but not least, the Love Gathering. The Love Gathering, Rabatia. We're going to come together on this day to just be. It's a day of love, celebration of life. Gerard, we're going to celebrate him. We're going to have fun, food, self-care. It's at a beautiful park in Redford called Handy Park. There's going to be something for everyone, but we're not coming there to do a lot of talking. We're coming there to do a lot of demonstrating and expressions of love. So join us. Save this date. You will hear closer. It gets to this date where you'll hear and see more. We're going to have also before the Love Gathering, I think the Friday before, we're going to have Reverend Shahira on with us. So say the date, June the 24th, 2023. And is that it, you guys, for tonight?
Oh my goodness, Jay, this was awesome. And listen, we got to do something on the healing aspect of autism and ADHD. There are some remedies that are out there. There's studies on remedies. The show's not long enough for that, but we'll do it soon.
Yeah, we'll do a part 2, you guys.
Yeah, we'll do a part 2.
Because we didn't even talk about the diet and all that stuff. So we will do a part 2. And we're going to have, I think Ali is going to be on next week. And then we're going to have, I think, close to the end of the month, closer to June, we're going to have Attorney Mack come on and talk about that qualified immunity. So,
yay.
So thank you, everyone. This was an awesome conversation. And I hope you guys feel inspired by what we were talking about today. And, you can always leave us a comment or on the platforms that we're on. That helps circulates us through the algorithms. Okay. So,
J Love, can I make can I make just one comment in leaving here now?
Okay.
I won't call him your mentor. I'll call him your protege. When y'all was blasting them airways every Friday, I've been following the brother on Facebook. The man say he's finna come out retirement.
I saw that.
Let's do it. Let's go, Sam. Let's go.
Hey, AJ Love, and I see the brother running up them stairs and Joe Louis Arena and all that kind of stuff, doing that thing. So
like Rocky.
I'm starting to move right now. Free Sam Riddle. Free Sam Riddle. Free Sam Riddle. Bring him back to the airways. Free Sam Riddle.
I would let him know. I've been trying to get him back on here, but he's been so busy. So
right, that's right. Yeah. That's right. And J Love and Reverend Tia, I said without shame or disgrace. I plagiarize the man on a regular basis. He know it. So for all you haters out there trying to criticize me, Sam Riddle said that. If Sam Riddle is a victim, he ain't worried about it. What the hell you worried about it for? So I'm saying is, what the hell, J Love? What the hell? It's
yeah, I saw that. I think yesterday. Be afraid, very afraid.
That's right.
All right, you guys, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next Friday. I'll turn the moment into a movement.
Love you.
Okay. Love you.
Okay.